as you can tell, we are going to be talking about the 2015 film The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers and starring, I'm sorry, I am a favorite of hers, Anya Taylor Joy as Thomason. Now, what's the synopsis of this one? Well, you have a family who's living during the Puritan times and they are banished from the village. And William, the father, who is very stern and stubborn and very, very religious, decides to take his family and leave the village to start their own, you can say their own village themselves. Now, they move into this land and things begin to happen. As you can see in the background, I have the presence of the woods, and what is in the woods tends to infiltrate the land a little bit more, which causes a lot of strange occurrences and, well, I don't know, maybe a long, very long, drawn out story. But so let's get into it real quick. So Lexi, I gotta ask you now. We've been doing a lot of the movies we've been doing have been mostly present time. Now, timepieces tend to be a slow burn and are really not for everybody. So the question I have for you, did you think the slow burn in this movie did a good job to build up to the end?
I have pros and cons with it. More cons than pros. It is an absolute slow burn. It really takes a long time to get to the damn point. The ending, does it work for the ending? We'll get more in depth into it. I think it works to a certain extent with the Black Phillip goat. I think it works for that, but when it comes to Thomason, I don't think it works for her. This is an absolute slow burn. I don't think, I can't wait for the rating at the end. This was a interesting pick. I mean, the burn is so slow. I think I almost wanted to turn it off, to be honest. Yeah. But when it comes to the story leading up to Black Phillip the goat, I think that part was pretty interesting. The father, I feel, holds some of the movie together.
Yes.
Like, there was bits and pieces that I did like. So let's talk about the pros, right? The father, being I'm not like super religious, but being a Christian woman, I loved his faith and trying to keep the family together. The mother, on the other hand, lost her shit. I don't think I could turn on my kid like that.
Yeah.
But I loved his faith. I loved that part of the movie.
Leaving our country, kindred, our fathers' houses. For what? For the kingdom of God.
Because he kept the family together. I would hope my faith is as strong as his, you know? Yeah. I was kind of jealous. I was like, dang, I really need to talk to God more. But as far as the other characters, I probably wanted to kick the little twins' asses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They need a spanking. Thomason, I really felt for. Now, yeah. With Thomason, I felt bad. Yeah. She was railroaded. And at the end, I felt like she kind of gives up. And we'll get more into depth on what I mean by that. But I also don't think it works, and we'll get into that. I'm interested in what you think.
See, I did warn you. That's one thing. When we talked about doing this one, I did warn you. It's a very, very slow burn. Now, this is why I'm going to counter your argument where I think it kind of worked, is because we get from the get-go in the movie how strong William is, how stubborn he is, where he questions the whole town and whether they're actually false Christians, not putting their faith on God, but putting their faith on their own laws and dictating how people live. Which I give him credit. The fact that he chose banishment over listening to them was a turning point. I mean, it was a good way to start the movie. Now, as you can see the background, this is where they end up setting up land. Now, for me, I think the story, the reason it was a very slow burn was to show the isolation and how much faith you can have to the point where eventually it gets tested to the point where one by one you start questioning whether God is really on your side or not. Because there was one scene where there's gonna be spoilers, of course, where after they lost baby Sam and Catherine is just railroading on Thomason as much as she could get.
Right.
Where William's laying in bed with his wife and Catherine telling her, listen, you need to sleep. You know, God put us in this situation. He didn't turn his back on us, but he's testing us. He's testing us. And this is why I think the slow burn actually, kind of worked in a way, because it was, we'll talk about the witches later, but I felt like for me, it's like just to see them slowly falling apart.
Right. Now, but with the mother, like, I get why she feels the way that she feels. I can't even imagine losing a child, right, especially that little. In the way the movie sets Thomason up, you can't help to have that natural human instinct that it is her fault.
Yeah.
But, I don't think the mother or any of the family knows about what's going on outside the lands in the woods at that point. So I get her feeling, but to turn on your other children's back and just kind of push her less of.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking to watch. And like we both say, she's railroaded hardcore, Thomason.
Yeah. Well, you almost get the feeling like Catherine didn't want to leave. Like she wanted to stay in town. But, William, he's such a, I was a fan of his. William was, yes. We'll talk about the characters in a minute, but the cast in this I thought they were excellent. William's played by Ralph Ineson, and I thought the cast was well picked in this. They all played their parts really good. But why don't we just go into that now? We have all these characters. We had Thomason, who is basically the center of the movie. You had the father William. You had Catherine, the mother, who's distraught and just basically lashes out as much as she can. And mind you, she was lashing out on Thomason before Sam disappeared. Yeah. And then you had Caleb, which is, he starts questioning, even when his father starts like showing signs of losing faith. Caleb's questioning the faith itself, which causes William to basically stand his ground. Now, then you had the twins, which they're annoying, but yeah. Overall, what did you think of the characters in this film?
Well, let's start with the twins. They need spanking. I could not stand them. But they do play minuscule, vital parts when they're running around the land, singing the Black Phillip goat song. So, yeah, I think that part was nice because it fits in with the ending. But, my God, they need to go in timeout, spanking, something. Maybe they should have been the kids to go. But, you don't get to know the baby that much. It's sad that, he dies. But there was, and I don't want to touch on the witch just yet, but with the baby, we'll get into the gruesome. But I'm going to stop there on that. But Thomason and the father, William, both have to be my favorite. If there's any pros in this, it's them two. Because although she's like being bullied by the twins, the young kids, Caleb, kind of on her side, but the father stood behind her 100% the entire time, even towards the end. Like, he really did love her. He really tried. I can see how the movie builds up to a point where he kind of turns on her at the end, but I liked their relationship and the fact that he had that strong bond to defend her against Catherine. So what did you think of the characters?
I can't sing any more praises on Anya Taylor-Joy. I just think she's, and this film was actually, I think, one of the first ones she's like started. This was her first starring role.
Okay.
Which it basically set on a course, because she's a hell of an actress, and you do feel for her. She was constantly being questioned about her face. She was constantly being badgered by Catherine. It got to the point where even William eventually lashed out on her too, because, the twins, like you were saying, how they kept singing the song about Black Phillip. Then started the accusations about her being a witch, which she kind of toyed with them about her actually being a witch, which didn't help, the situation later on in the film.
Like the twins were the witches.
I'm glad I can't wait for us to get to the end of the movie, but I thought they were the whole time they were evil. I mean, the way they were acting,
like, what is that movie? Pet Cemetery type of vibe, or the Omen Child type of vibe?
Omen, yeah, both of them. Now, Caleb, I liked. Caleb was where Thomason took the brunt of Catherine. Caleb, there's a scene where him and William are going into the woods because basically the crops are not growing, and they know they have to catch in order to survive because winter's coming. And immediately he tells his dad, "I thought we were supposed to go into the forest." So the minute they go into the forest, his father basically has him question him and have him do, like basically quotes of the faith. He asked him questions and he would, go back and ask the father questions. And then he started questioning the father even more. Like, was Sam born of sinners? Is Sam in hell? Which got William going. I mean, I thought Caleb and William's relationship should have been built up a little bit more. If I'm one of the knocks I have, because I thought that unique, because here's the son, the second oldest, who's eventually gonna be the man as old as he gets, and he's doing everything, looking up to his father, but at the same time he's questioning his father on one of the things that Williams is the strongest in, is this faith. So for me, I mean, I thought the characters worked well. Catherine, I mean, I think she was portrayed to be the way she was portrayed. She was just, I mean, I wish she would just win in the house.
She wasn't a witch, she was a wench.
Yeah, she was a big time wench.
Yeah. She, it's just not the type of mother I am. It's like, I could not turn on my kids. Is it heartbreaking that I lost another child and it could potentially be the fault of my other child? I'm still going to love them regardless. It may take a while to heal, but I'm not going to treat them any different. And she completely banished her daughter.
You've cursed this family.
Now, this takes time during the Puritans, and then of course, it's a New England folklore, which with New England, you have the Salem witch trials, everything about the witches during the times of the Puritans, how easily it was to accuse anybody of being a witch. But here's a question I have for you. With the movie called The Witch and the specter of the witches, did you feel like the fact that there was the lack of witches, they were just basically put in the background of the movie, that you rarely saw them, was a problem in this film?
I feel like I needed to see more of the witch. The parts that I did see were disturbing, especially when the baby dies and she basically, slashes it and covers her body and with the baby's blood. It's just so sad. What a horrific way to go. Especially a child. And this is the cons that I kind of have with this movie, is I don't understand certain parts where that had to be in it. I guess I'm kind of like Rick with the killing of the animals. Why the kids? So that was disturbing. Now I kind of want to touch on the ending, because it kind of, you see the witches at the end, which I felt like, and I'm going to touch more in depth on the ending when we get there.
Yeah.
But the witches at the end, I felt like that's because again, the Black Phillip the goat, I felt was the better ending than the very, very end with Thomason and the witches, which we'll go more in depth about that. But he was the better ending. I felt like there was kind of almost two endings there.
Yes. Yeah,
so it's like we got to see two endings, which is okay, because you always watch a movie and you're like, okay, that could have ended differently. We get to see two endings.
Yeah.
And I like they should have went way more in depth with the goat. Now the crop's not growing. I think there's a reason why that it's not growing. It's not they know how to farm. I mean,
Yeah.
this is their lifestyle. So I don't think that's the case. I think it's the witch case. The way the land is cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of the witches, or lack of witches?
Well, the two scenes you saw the witches in was the one you described with the baby. Now, I
Mm.
think the reason that was done was, remember, she looked older when she took the baby.
Right.
So when she covered herself up in the baby's blood, the second time you see her is where
She's
she
young.
lures Caleb in, and she's
Mhm.
young. And Caleb's at that age where he was curious, because there was a scene earlier in the film where Thomason's sleeping and Caleb just looked at her in a very disturbing way. But, she knew how to lure him, and she lured him in, and basically
Mhm.
Caleb was gone. But for me, it's like, I do think there should have been their presence a little bit more.
Mhm.
I mean, even there's a scene where where basically you had a shot where William's looking at the woods, and then all of a sudden it pans into the woods. If you would have had maybe the shadows of the witches looking on, just something to give us more of their
Something.
presence.
We saw more of them than we saw the witches, and the movie's called The Witch.
Yeah.
And I feel like the goat was more a devil-like thing than it was a witch thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now
Like,
you keep mentioning Black Phillip, which is
yeah, I know. I kind of like Black Phillip.
let's talk about it, because we talked about all these characters earlier.
Yeah.
Every single person that has watched this film,
Mhm.
they've always talked about the Black Phillip character.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Black Phillip as a character,
hmm
and talk about what happened at the end with
Okay.
Black Phillip as well.
Lipstick, you are wicked.
Does he really speak to thee?
So as a character, I felt he was not like the witch type of thing. Now there's one little point we forgot to hit on, which is the bunny rabbit coming into the woods. Now, I think that was obviously the witch, shaping into, yeah. Kind of, this movie kind of takes me back to something the Three Corners and I talked about, like you won't be alone. Or, yeah. It kind of reminded me of that. Which, go watch that one. That's really good. That movie's good.
A slow burn though.
It is a slow burn, not as slow as this one. But now the Black Phillip goat, I felt I got more Satanist devil vibe than I did the witch vibe.
Yeah.
But I liked him because they had a thing kind of going with the twins, saying that, oh yeah, I hear Thomason even said, I hear them talking and they sing his song and they're the ones selling their soul to him. And William, he gets upset with his kids. Like, are you selling your soul to Black Phillip? And are you talking to the devil? And like, they're really trying to keep the faith within the family. And there's just sin all around, from the subtle moments of the blood being covered by the witch and Caleb kind of eyeballing at his sister's chest, and the sin that they talk about between the father and the mother, and Caleb being born as sin, and then the two twins talking to Black Phillip. So it's like the whole movie is drenched in sin. And they're talking about religion. And yeah. So back to the Black Goat, I felt was a better story to go with.
Yeah.
Whereas we'll talk about the ending, the second ending, I guess, so to speak. What about you on your thoughts of the Black Phillip?
I love the twist at the end with Black Phillip.
Mm-hmm.
What I think I would have done as far as the ending, because we, like you mentioned, there's two endings in this. I would have intertwined them. I would have had her walk in, because all right, so let's say what happens. The whole time we're wondering what's with Black Phillip, and the fact that she accused the twins of talking to Black Phillip. So she goes in and she talks to Black Phillip, and he talks back, and he turns into a person, which you don't really see, but you kind of see with the shadow.
Yeah.
But the fact that I took Black Phillip as being Satan, And I think if they would have did something where when she was talking to Black Phillip, if they would have did the editing where she's walking in the woods at the same time and constantly intertwined between both of them, I think it would have sold the ending a little bit better as far as her giving in, because she still held her faith the whole time. And then she finally broke at the end when basically her whole family was wiped. So for me, yeah, I mean, I love the Black Phillip character. I think he could have had more of a presence. I mean, if like the scene where the father's sitting and he has the corn that's basically it's a waste. Right. If you have Black Phillip in the background at certain points in this movie, when the curses were being talked about, I think it would have made his presence, and it would have made you question, why is this goat always around?
And like, how does his story, because you kind of feel like he has his own little thing going, fit with the witches? How do they fit together? And I like the idea of intertwining them, but it would still make no sense, I feel.
Because I think it makes no sense because of the fact that you only saw one witch
the entire time,
and all of a sudden you have it basically a whole coven showing up.
I saw the witch bunny rabbit more than I saw the witch.
But I think if it would have been a single witch, bring her in, it would have been a little bit better. You didn't have to have that scene with all of them floating. I don't get why they did that.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. So
yes. Now the second ending is where the whole family's basically killed. Who knows what happened with the twins, but thank God. I felt like because she was so tarnished and just banished by this family, besides William, although he kind of gave in at the end there, he turned on her at the end, and then killing her mother. Yeah, let's talk about that. I would have killed her too. But she ends up killing her mother because, she's choking her out. She's going to defend herself. But then to go from that feeling of being banished, basically sin around her, and then, if I'm a witch, then screw it. I have nothing else to live for. Then I'm going to give in to sin. I'm going to give in to believing in Satan, the Black Phillip. And then I'm just going to become a witch. If that's what you want me to be, then that's what I'm turning. But I just wish I had more of the ending to make sense.
Yeah.
Getting naked, floating in the air with all the other witches. I didn't even know there was more than one, just the one that we saw that went from old to young.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense. But it was okay. It just, I wanted more from it, from her side, and why she chose to finally give in when she could have went the other way, continued with her faith, and just lived on her own.
Yeah, I mean, it's a interesting because she couldn't go back to the town, so she's basically stuck out there. So they're banished from the town, so there was no turning back to the town, which I think was one of the reasons she just gave in, because there was no hope. There was no hope left. I mean, for me, I still think that if it would have ended with like I said, intertwining the conversation with Black Phillip, her going into the woods, and then that one witch waiting for her with open arms, and then just stop right there. That would have been a perfect ending for me. I didn't like the whole floating thing.
Me neither. But I think the way she reacted that way because when you give in to sin, you're feeling all the good things God is supposed to promise you, and so she's feeling all those good feelings that Satan is now giving her, and so that's the way she's reacting. She's laughing. She's smiling. She feels good. Do you feel like it was kind of a little over-sexualized as well?
It was, which is unfortunate because I don't like that. For me, there was no need for nudity in that scene.
I agree. Even for the baby Caleb in the ending there.
There was no need for that. And I feel, like I said, I'm a fan of hers, and I feel kind of bad she was put in that position.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Kids, yeah.
Yeah. And I got a question, though. So, Black Phillip's been with them this whole time.
Yes.
This wasn't brought up in the movie at all, or made it seem like it was, but
they brought their animals with them to this new land.
Like it almost makes you feel like Black Phillip had this whole thing planned out from the get-go.
Right.
Because he was the strongest in the town. He was the most religious in the whole town.
Right. I felt like the movie should have been called Black Phillip.
That would have been better. No,
Yeah.
it was. It's an interesting film.
It was.
And yeah, like I said, I knew it was going to be a slow burn. I warned you about the slow burn. It's just one of the two things that negative reviews I get in this movie is one, yes, the fact that it is a very slow burn. Two is, like I said, timepieces are not for everybody. Everybody who is a horror fan like either present time or future time, or somewhere in the future.
And that part doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, people for some reason, timepieces are such a turnoff for a lot of horror fans because, like, for example, I was talking to Rick. I'm going to mention this, Rick, because we had a conversation about this. But Rick was like, "Well, the way the father was talking was confusing me." That's all. Well, that's the way they talked at that time. That's the way times caused them to talk. If they would have modernized the way they talked, I don't think it would have come across any good.
Right. I had to put captions for it.
Oh yeah, no. When he always talked like he was doing the gospel, like he was preaching.
Yes.
And it's almost like he had to talk that way in order to continue holding the family together with faith.
He was the light source of the movie.
Yes.
In all the sin and darkness. He was the father, William was the light source. And I loved that about him because I love scary movies. I may be a demented Christian, but yes, I like a little light, to cover me during all these movie watches. But I liked William for that. And I loved his faith. I like him. He's definitely a pro for me.
So let's jump right in. So let's go with the scores. Now, do you feel like, in case you're wondering, we always break down, we go by storyline and characters and then the overall score of the movie. So here we go. You throw all your cons down. What do you think about the storyline? How would you rate the storyline?
The storyline? Well, I felt like they were getting somewhere and then they backed off, started a new one. Getting somewhere, backed off, started a new one. So I felt like there was so much potential and none of it was played out. Yeah. And when they were played out, they ended horrible. It was like watching a good movie and then the ending sucks. So storyline, I'm going to rate it as like 2.5. And I wanted to like this one. Yeah. I watched it twice, and watching it the second time, I felt the same. Yeah. And almost dreaded watching it again because I felt like they gave you a little, then you back off. So storyline wise, I wish they would played with it more. It should have been called the Black Phillip instead of the Witch, because I felt we saw more of him, of Satan, which is completely different type of story. Satan and witches are completely different. So I do wish they would have played more on the witch. Yeah. And I get her story. Now, with the killing of the kids, that's so sad. And I wish I could unsee those parts. But I felt like she had a story that needed to be said, and we didn't get a background. No. Kind of like from the previous one that I mentioned. You got a background on that story. Yeah. Again, you won't be alone. But this one, we absolutely got nothing. We just saw her kill kids and cover her blood in it. Yeah. So how do you feel about the rate of the story?
All right. So one of the things I found out that they filmed this movie in 25 days. Mm-hmm. Most movies film in months. So
right.
It made me curious why only 25 days of filming. But they actually also used natural lighting. So all the lighting you see was all natural lighting used making this film. Which makes you wonder, all right, what if they would have went like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months filming this? Or how much of the story could they put in place? So I don't know if that is one of the reasons why it felt like, even though it was a slow burn, it was slightly rushed through in a way. But that's something I was wondering about. But for me, I'm going to give it a 3. I want to give it more, like I feel like the actors did for the script they got, they did a great job.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about the characters next, but for the script they got, they did a great job. I do feel that there's a bunch of plot holes in there that I wanted more of. Definitely more of the presence of the witch, not by the kids, by her presence herself. Even if she would have showed up, even in the shadow, give us something, even when they're in the house, her presence, because this reminded me of the movie M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Don't go into the woods, don't go into the woods. But this one, you kind of wanted to go in the woods, and bring out whatever's in the woods to them. That way, you have more of a story. And I do agree, we needed more background on the witch. Why was she there? Did people know she was there? Was she part of the village itself? Did she follow them there? I mean, there's a lot of questions as far as the witch goes. Now, the characters, I mean, I think we seem to agree that the characters are actually pretty good in this movie.
Yeah.
How would you rate the characters in this film?
Even the twins are good, but they are so annoying. I liked them because they brought in Black Phillip with the singing and talking and chanting to it, but they were the most annoying. They give my lowest score, which is probably about a 2.5. Thomason, I have to give the girl a good 4. Like you said, she's a great actress. It's good to know that this is her first movie and she was that good. I am a girl's girl. I felt so bad for her, and that's why I'm dressed like her in Jesus' name, because I felt so bad for her. She was railroaded from the second the movie started, banishing from her town, banished by her family. Where else can she go? I guess towards Satan. So, and become a witch. So she became what they wanted her, or thought that she was.
Yeah.
The mother can go straight to hell. She gets a 2 as well. Because I would never in my life turn on my kid, no matter the damage they may have caused. She was set up in a bad way. The witch took the child. We don't even get to see that. We don't get to see the witch take the child, but that's what happened, because we see the child get killed. But it was a bad setup for Thomason. As for the father, I kind of liked him a lot more than Thomason. Probably a 4 as well. And I wanted to give him a 5, but he turned his back at the last second. But I loved his faith. I mentioned that already many times, but I loved how strong his character was. He really tried to keep the family together, but he has a crazy wife, 2 other crazy kids. Caleb. He was also, I'm going to probably put him as a 3.5, because I felt I wanted more from him too. Because the moment with the father, like you said, where they were in the woods, or even after that with Thomason and him in the woods, where they're running out, and I don't even remember what they were looking for, but they were out there for food. That's right. Because the crops are dying, but it really sucks that she gets knocked out, because that's how she ends up losing that sibling. And that's another setup, poor thing. It's like just getting railroad after railroaded. But Caleb was strong. His character was a little sinful. Like, he's looking at his sister in a way he shouldn't. He's made in sin, but I loved his faith. I thought the part where he, what was it? They were in the barn, I believe, in their house or something. And he's like, he almost is like his father faithfully. Although he was born in sin, he had the same faith as his father, and that he played his part well. I liked Caleb, especially at the end. Like he did a super, like he got into that, where he's praying, he sees the light, and then he passes in peace. I'm assuming he goes to heaven, because he screams out that he sees Jesus or whatever. But overall, character-wise, was better than the storyline.
All right, so for me, I like the characters. I think for the script they got, each played their role. I mean, Catherine annoyed the hell out of you. The twins just don't know what the hell you.
Mhm.
Caleb, wanted more from him.
Yes.
Thomason, I mean, I love Anna Taylor-Joy. William, I mean, he did an amazing job. I mean, I almost feel like what would have happened if they would have all died except for William and her.
Hmm.
How would that have shifted the story? And I almost get the feeling like this movie would probably be potentially a better series than a standalone movie, because you
I
could
agree.
really get into a lot of stuff that this movie had left wide open.
Right.
And for me, Black Phillip gets a 5 because he's
Yes.
Black Phillip gets a 5.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what I'm waiting for. The overall. What's your overall score of this movie?
I am going to give it a 2.5. It's just so slow. I really wanted more from it. I felt like we had a puzzle and all the pieces were missing, or they weren't fitting correctly. Characterized, like we said, overall, like all of them combined, they're a good 3.5. Although the two main ones are 4, but the overall everything has to be a 2.5 because again, it's like a puzzle. We're missing pieces. There's 2 different endings, and both of them were played short. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah,
I watched it twice. That's enough.
I'm gonna go a little higher than yours. I'm gonna go 3.5 only because I did enjoy this film. I kind of embraced the slow burn of it only because I knew it was basically showing the total breakdown of a family,
Mm-hmm.
for the fact that they questioned their religion, all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, every single one questions, except the 2 twins. They didn't really care about their religion, but
No.
they all question their religion. They all break down to a certain degree, and it was just the isolation of being left alone. And I mean, look at that view. I mean, being left alone,
Right.
knowing that you can't turn back and go to town. So basically, you got to make
do.
big do. And the fact that William knew that, to the point where, remember, he took Caleb into the woods and afterwards told us, "Don't tell your mother anything about this."
Mm-hmm.
From where he wanted his son to commit a sin because he was desperate, knowing that if he doesn't do anything, they're all going to die out there, which he's a family guy. That's the last thing he wanted. But for me, I understood the whole isolation breakdown of the family. I mean, I wish this is one of these movies that you wish it was longer, but you don't at the same time, because
Yeah.
you're caught in that middle with this film. It's like, damn, I wish I had more, but if they would add more, how longer this film would have been.
Right.
Like the cinematography, the lighting, everything was beautifully done. I mean, I wish I could film something like, better storyline, but something like this. But yeah, for me, I'm gonna give it 3.5. A lot of potential. I do think it should get revisited as a series because I think it'll do excellent as a series. And
kind of like Handmaid's Tale almost.
Yeah.
I think it would be better as a series too, because maybe we'll get the missing pieces we needed for this movie.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And you don't even have to redo the whole thing. Start off to the point where he goes into the woods and start it from there. But yeah, for me, 3.5. Yeah, I mean, watch it. It's currently streaming on HBO Max. It is a slow burn. This movie is not for everyone. You will either like it or hate it. There's no middle line.
Right.
I mean, the acting is great. Still wondering why it took 25 days only to film it.
That is interesting.
Yeah, but for me, yeah, I mean,
because the characters are better overall than the actual storyline, so it's like they needed more use.
Yes.
Of storyline.
No, definitely.
I appreciate this suggestion. It's an eye opener because we're not going to like everything.
No, we're not.
Yeah, and this is definitely one of my least.
So this is one of your least. So why don't you tell people one of your faves that we're going to be talking about next episode of What's Your Story?
So what is up next is my all-time favorite, probably my top 5, maybe even my top 3, but it is The Conjuring 2, which I feel is the best out of the whole Conjuring universe series. So I cannot wait to talk about that one.
And that's streaming on HBO Max as well, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Conjuring 2, James Wan. James Wan is a great director, and yeah.
Can we talk about Patrick Wilson? Oh, eye candy.
Wow, what's her name? The one who plays Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, Vera.
Oh, she's
Fatima. Vera Fatima.
She's a beautiful woman too.
She is. She really is. I love her.
Stop. Great combination. They picked a good combination to play Ed and Lorraine Warren, who happen to be from the New England area, Connecticut. All right, yeah, that's it for this episode of What's Your Story? 2.5, 3.5. Watch at your own peril. You might be cursed or you might like it. Whichever way you want to go with it.
I am super curious on what others think about
this.
this.
Yes. Let us know. Please comment below. See where do you stand on this movie, and as far as how much of a slow burn killed the story.
And did you want more from it? Because I sure as hell did.
And did you like Black Phillip?
Yes, he. You're right. His rating is a 5. I don't know why. And we got to see him more than the witch, but we still barely saw him too.
Yes,
Black Phillip. He had more of a story than the witch did.
Do a standalone, Black Phillip.
Yeah.
What happened to him? Where'd he go?
Right.
But yes, that's us for this week. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, and continue watching Conjuring 2 next episode. And we have a lot coming your way here on What's Your Story. This is JR.
Lexi.
See you next time.
Bye.
We out. Peace.